Welcome to ACCES Employment's workshop about preparing for an interview. In this workshop, you'll learn about the purpose of an interview, the stages of an interview, the different types of interviews, the different types of interview questions, what to do before, during, and after an interview. After completing this workshop, you'll be able to effectively prepare for an interview, create sample answers for standard interview questions, and anticipate questions you will have in an interview. This section of the workshop will provide you with an introduction to interviews. There are typically two parties involved in an interview, the candidate being interviewed and the employer. The two parties have different goals or objectives for the interview. As the person being interviewed, you'll probably have the following goals. You may want to find out more information about the job and the organization. You'll want to market yourself, your skills, and experience which are relevant to the position. Through the interview, you will want to communicate the value you bring to the company. You may also want to determine whether the job is suitable for you. The interviewer or employer has a different set of goals. This may include promoting their organization and attracting the best possible candidate, gathering information about the candidate, assessing how well the candidate's qualifications match the job requirements, and finally, they will want to determine whether the candidate is a good fit for the position and the organization. In the course of the interview, both the candidate and the interviewer are looking for a good fit. Let's take a closer look at this concept since it is a goal that both parties want to achieve. The right fit or good fit means that who you are as a candidate fits with what the company wants from an employee. A good fit means that you have the right work and professional experience, education, qualifications, and technical skills required for the position. You have the right communication skills that are effective for the particular job. You have the right enthusiasm, motivation, and interests. You present yourself professionally. You have the right salary expectations that are in line with what can be offered by the company. Finally, that your professional values are aligned with the values of the company and that you will fit in with the company culture. Here's another way to look at what interviewers are trying to determine through the interview process. First, they want to know that you can do the job. In other words, do you have the required ability? Second, they want to know that you have the right attitude. In other words, are you genuinely interested in the work? And are you interested in working for that company? Companies don't want employees who just want a paycheck at the end of the day. They want employees who actually care about the work that the company does. Third, they want to know that you are easy to supervise and that you can be trained to do the work the way the company wants it done. No manager wants to take on employees who takes excessive time, effort, and energy to supervise. And no manager wants an employee who can't learn how to do things the way they need to be done. This is called manageability. Finally, the company wants to know if you are committed to the job and the company. In other words, once you are hired, will you stay? It takes a lot of time and money to hire a new employee. Employers don't want to go through the hiring process, make a selection, and then have to go through the whole process again if the person hired leaves shortly after starting. Companies are looking for employees that can invest their time and training in and to get a return on that investment. Most interviews follow the same basic structure, regardless of the field, company, or type of job. If you understand this basic structure, you won't be surprised by what takes place during the interview. Here is an overview of the basic structure of an interview. First, there's the opening. The interview begins with greetings initiated by the interviewer. The purpose is to put the candidate at ease, establish rapport, and find a comfortable level of communication. You may also engage in small talk or light conversation to start the interview off. Possible topics could include weather, travel, or perhaps the office space. Suggested greetings could include, "It's nice to meet you. I appreciate you taking the time to meet with me. Thank you for inviting me in for an interview." Second, there is some sharing of general information. The interviewer provides general information about the organization and asks the candidate to share general information about themselves. Third, there may be sharing about specific information. The questions become much more detailed, directed, and targeted. The interviewer asks very specific questions to determine if the candidate is a good fit for the position being filled and for the company. Next, the interviewer usually provides you with a turn to ask questions. Ask specific questions about the organization. You should be prepared for this stage by having at least 2 or 3 questions already thought out that you want to ask about the company. Finally, there is the closing of the interview. The interviewer will summarize and clarify the information shared in the interview. The interviewer will also indicate when a decision will be made and how that decision will be communicated. We will take a look at the different types of interviews. There are generally 2 types. The first is a screening interview. These are used to quickly and efficiently ensure that only suitable candidates are invited for a full interview. They're often conducted over the phone. Selection interviews are used to fully explore the qualifications of a candidate. These in-person interviews usually take shape in the following formats. 1-to-1 formats include 1 candidate and 1 interviewer. This tends to be the standard format. Search committee or panel interviews include 1 candidate and 2 or more interviewers. This format is also quite common. Finally, group interviews include multiple candidates and multiple interviewers and are used to assess how you interact in a group setting. The next section of the workshop will teach you how to answer interview questions. Now that we've covered the structure of an interview and the different formats, it is time to dig down a little deeper to look at the actual questions you'll be asked in an interview. There are 4 types of interview questions that interviewers use to gather the information they need in order to make a hiring decision. These types include general queries, questions about soft skills, as well as technical and behavioral questions. General questions are used to open an interview. They allow you to share your background information, and they allow the interviewer to get a general sense of your education and work experience. Personal attribute questions allow the interviewer to explore the soft skills that are necessary for the job. Technical questions are used to determine if you have the specific technical skills required for the position. Behavioral questions are used to determine how you respond in specific situations. Let's take a more detailed look at each of these question types in turn, starting with general questions. General questions serve as an introduction to who you are and what you've accomplished so far in your career. When answering general questions, describe your qualifications, career history, and range of skills. You should also emphasize steps in your career and skills that are most relevant to the job when you're answering general questions. We will look at some of the most commonly used general questions and suggest ideas for how to answer them. With the general question, what have your achievements been to date? You should select an achievement that is work-related and fairly recent. You should identify the skills you used in the achievement and quantify the benefit it had to the company. Here's an example of how to answer this question. My greatest achievement has been to design and implement a new sales ledger system, bringing it in ahead of time, improving our debtors' position significantly, and saving the company $5,000 per month in interest. A general question that is always challenging is, what are your salary expectations? It may be hard to put a dollar value on our skills and experience. In order to answer this question, make sure you have researched the salaries for similar positions prior to the interview. Don't use a specific number. Rather, provide a range. For example, $40,000 to $50,000. Finally, demonstrate flexibility and indicate that you're willing to be compensated in other ways if necessary, such as with extra vacation days or a competitive benefits package. Here are some examples of what this might sound like in a conversation. In my research, I've learned that this position typically pays between $45,000 and $55,000. I'm really interested in working for your company, and I have the right skills and qualifications for the job, so I'm prepared to negotiate a salary in that range. Is this in line with the salary that you're offering for this position? Here's another example. Your job posting gives a range of between $50,000 and $60,000. I'm satisfied with that range and will be happy to negotiate salary further once it's decided that I'm the best fit for the job. Soft skills questions are the second type of interview question that you can expect to be asked. Soft skills questions are used to assess your skills and abilities in areas such as communication, decision-making, taking initiative, being analytical, ability to handle pressure, and meet deadlines. The interviewer may ask you about specific soft skills that are essential to being successful in the job. They will do this with direct questions such as, how do you work in a team setting? And they may also want to see if you're aware of which soft skills are most important by asking more open-ended questions such as, what are your greatest strengths? Soft skills questions allow the employer to assess things such as your professional values, ethics, and principles, your natural strengths, weaknesses, talents, interests, and passions, and your work style. The interviewer then determines if you are a good fit for the organization. Here are some more examples of soft skills questions that an interviewer might ask you. How would you describe your working style? What are your top 3 skills? What are your weaknesses? How would you approach your role? What key principles or values do you apply to your work? What are you most passionate about and why? It's a good idea to draft answers to all of these possible questions well in advance of the interview and practice answering them clearly and confidently. One of the most challenging attribute questions is, what are your weaknesses? You don't want to draw attention to skills and attributes that you struggle with. However, you want to demonstrate that you are self-aware and that you know you have areas of your work performance to improve upon. Select one specific weakness, make sure it is not something that is an essential skill for the job, and explain what strategy you have implemented to improve in this area. Here are some examples of what this might sound like in the interview. Although I'm proficient in many software programs, I am sharpening my ACCES skills so that I can be even better and quicker. Here's another example. I can't think of any weaknesses that would create a challenge for me in this job. However, I'm always looking to improve myself. Currently, I'm a member of Toastmasters where I'm developing greater confidence in making public presentations. Technical questions are the next type of question that you can expect to be asked. Technical questions are used to determine if you have the required technical skills for the position. Even if you're not applying for what you consider to be a technical job, you will still be asked this type of question because every job has technical aspects to it. Here are some examples. What computer programs can you use? What communication technology can you use? What construction tools can you use? How do you ensure that health and safety policies are being followed by you and your team? Tell me how this particular piece of equipment is best utilized in a project like this. Technical questions are very specific to a job or field. To answer technical questions, be detailed and specific and demonstrate that you are familiar with the technical aspects of the position. Illustrate your answers with examples of how and when you use the technical tool or skill in the workplace. Behavioral questions are the final type of question. It is this question type that most candidates find challenging. Interviewers place a lot of importance on how candidates will behave on the job when they make their hiring decisions. Ideally, interviewers would like to be able to see you on the job before making a hiring decision, but since this is not practical, behavioral questions are the next best option. It is therefore important for you as a candidate to be able to accurately convey how you behave in the workplace. There are 2 types of behavioral questions: hypothetical questions and past behavioral questions. Both types of behavioral questions allow the interviewer to get a sense of how you will act and react in different situations that occur in the company or with the job. Hypothetical questions ask you to speculate or predict how you would behave in a specific situation. hypothetical questions all have the word if in them. Here are some examples. What would you do if you were up against a deadline you couldn't meet? If you were managing this particular project, what kind of approach would you take? When answering hypothetical questions, try to refer back to a real situation that you were actually in. Here's how you might answer a hypothetical question. If I were up against a deadline I couldn't meet, I would first make a realistic assessment of what I could get done by the deadline. I would then communicate this with my supervisor, starting with what I could get done. With the parts of the project that I couldn't complete, I would indicate when those parts could realistically be finished. This was an effective strategy on a recent project that I worked on. There were unforeseen circumstances that caused delays on the last component of the project. My supervisor was accepting and appreciated my realistic evaluation of when the deadlines could be met. Past behavioral questions are questions that require you to share what happened in specific situations in your past work experience. The assumption behind past behavioral questions is that past behavior is the best predictor of future behavior. Here are some examples of past behavioral questions. Can you describe a time when you had a difficulty working with a manager? Can you share an example of a situation where you were excited about an upcoming project? You should try to use the STAR technique when answering past behavioral questions. S stands for situation. T stands for task, taken by you. A stands for action or what happened. And R stands for results. Here is what a STAR answer sounds like. The past behavioral question is, describe a time when you had to meet a really tight deadline. Here is a sample response. We had to write the proposal from beginning to end overnight. This is the situation. I identified the strengths of the staff in my department and delegated specific responsibilities. This is the task. We split into small groups. I moved from group to group, keeping the teams on track and giving them breaks when necessary. This is the action. After working all night, we had the proposal in by the deadline of 8 a.m. We won the contract. This is the result. Here are some additional suggestions in order to help you prepare for behavioral questions, both hypothetical and past behavioral. Identify 6 to 8 examples from your past experience where you demonstrated top behaviors and skills that employers typically look for. Think of examples that will illustrate your best selling points. Half of your accomplishments should be completely positive, such as accomplishments or meeting goals. The other half should be situations that started out negatively, but either ended positively or resulted in making the very best out of the situation. It's important to reference a variety of past experiences to demonstrate a balanced work life. In addition to work experience, you might want to reference past or ongoing internships, classes and school projects, team participation, hobbies, and work experience and community service. Perhaps you help with the local parks or garden group. Tell them about that and how some of those experiences will help in the work environment. Wherever possible, quantify your results. Numbers always impress employers. For example, explain how you increased circulation by 15% without changing the budget or how you helped lead a $25 million redevelopment project. Use fairly recent examples. You should give examples of behaviors demonstrated within the last year. Most candidates think that interviewers can ask whatever questions they want in an interview. This is actually not the case. There are some questions that are illegal for interviewers to ask. The Ontario Human Rights Code protects people against discrimination. It forbids employers to ask certain kinds of questions in a job interview. Unless it is a reasonable requirement for the job, the interviewer or employer cannot ask a candidate about his or her age, gender, sexual orientation, disability, race or color, or whether or not you have Canadian experience. Even though there are illegal interview questions, employers may ask these questions anyway, either mistakenly or knowingly. You, as a candidate, then have to decide how you're going to respond. You have 3 options to consider. Option 1. You can tell the interviewer clearly and directly that this is an illegal question and that you won't answer it. The challenge with this option is that it will lessen your chances of securing the job. You don't want to take this option if you feel the legal question was not intentional and you feel this is a company you'd like to work for. If you feel the legal question was intentional, then you probably don't want to work for this organization anyway. So use this option if you have decided you're not interested in the job. Option 2, you can answer the question. If you don't feel that you'll be discriminated against by answering the question and you feel the employer has a genuine interest in you as a candidate, then this is a good option to take. The downside is you're taking on the risk of being discriminated against should the employer not want your particular profile. Option 3, you can take a few seconds to think about and determine the underlying concern the interviewer has in asking the question. Then, rather than answering the question directly, address the underlying concern. For example, if the interviewer asks you how old you are, but you feel that the underlying concern is whether you have the physical strength to do the job, then you can answer, "I'm in really good shape and can handle a physically strenuous job." Most interviewers allow a few minutes at the end of the interview for candidate questions. You can also ask questions throughout the interview process if they arise during the conversation. One of the reasons it is important to ask questions is that it demonstrates to the interviewer that you are interested in the job. Part of your interview preparation should be preparing 2 or 3 questions about the company or the job that you will ask in the interview. Make sure that your questions are thoughtful and not asking for general information that you presumably should already know about the company. The last part of the workshop will cover specific strategies for a successful interview. Being successful in the interview process is a lot of work. In addition to preparing for questions, you should also be ready to take on some specific strategies to prepare for your interview. The first thing you want to do before an interview is to research the company. Use the internet and your network of contacts to find out about the company, history, products, and services. If possible, you should also find out about the management style and the company culture. Find out the names and position titles of those who will be interviewing you. And finally, you should find out about the exact location of the interview and how to get there to ensure that you arrive on time. In fact, in an interview situation, it's best to be there a little early. Once you've finished your research, you'll need to move on to the rehearsal step. This is another step in your preparation where you can get ready to answer interview questions. You should make a list of questions you anticipate for this specific interview, prepare the answers to these questions, practice your answers with someone who's familiar with the field. This can be a friend, a colleague, or another acquaintance. Also, you should practice your answers in front of a mirror. It sounds a bit funny, but practice makes perfect. It is also important to ensure that you are in the right place mentally, emotionally, and physically before your interview. It is helpful to have some level of stress and excitement to prepare you for the interview. Too much stress, however, can be overwhelming. Before the interview, do something for yourself that relaxes you and puts you in the right frame of mind. Make sure that you're well rested and ready for the interview. Before you leave home, you will want to make sure that you have the following things with you: several copies of your resume, a list of professional references, a list of questions that you have about the company and position, copies of your credentials and licenses, a portfolio of work if this is applicable, some paper, and a pen. It is a good idea to prepare all of this the night before the interview so that it's one less thing to worry about on the big day. Before an interview, you should also make sure that you are appropriately presenting yourself. Dress one step above what you would actually wear on the job. Dress in clothing and shoes that are clean, neat, and in good condition. Pay attention to your personal hygiene. Avoid wearing too much makeup, nail polish, or jewelry. You shouldn't wear perfume or colognes. Workplaces are increasingly scent-free environments. Now let's move on to what you should keep in mind during the actual interview. Smile warmly when greeting people. Make eye contact with each person if there's more than one interviewer. Use the interviewer's name. Shake each person's hand firmly. Speak with confidence. Remember how qualified you are for the position and how it's your time to shine. Speak at an appropriate volume and speed. If the interviewer says "pardon me" more than once, it usually means you're not speaking loudly enough or that you're speaking too quickly. Adjust your volume and speed in this situation. All of these behaviors will tell the interviewer that you are professional, personable, and confident. When you're answering the questions during the interview, keep the following in mind. Be sure you understand a question before you answer it. Ask for clarification if you need it. Take a few seconds after hearing each question to formulate your answer. Think before you speak. You don't have to rush into your answers. Keep your answers brief. Less than 2 minutes for each answer is a good length. If the interviewer wants more detail, he or she will ask for it. Do not keep talking until the interviewer interrupts you. Keep your eye on the interviewer as you speak. If the interviewer's attention wanders while you're speaking, that is a clue that your answer is too long. And of course, be sure not to interrupt the interviewer. As the interview draws to a close, remember to do the following. Provide a list of professional references that the interviewer can contact in order to get more information about you. Ask for the next step in the hiring process and the timeframes for these steps. Make sure that the interviewer does not need anything else from you. Restate your interest in the position. Thank the interviewer or interviewers for their time. After you've reviewed your interview performance, you have one more post-interview task to complete. You should always send a follow-up letter or email. It is professional to say thank you to the interviewer for his or her time. Sending a follow-up letter or email also shows that you are motivated to get the position. You can use this communication as an additional opportunity to repeat your key message about your skills and qualifications for the job. You can also briefly offer new thoughts or ideas about what you can contribute to the company. Thank you for taking the time to review the Preparing for an Interview workshop. We hope that you have found the content useful and supportive. For more information or assistance, please visit www.accessemployment.ca.